All right, before we even start the engine on this deep dive, we have a very important declaration to make.
We do.
This deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are here to explore, discuss, and learn, and, well, we're not charging admission for the ideas we are about to unpack today.
That is right. I mean, information wants to be free, and this specific information is definitely something that needs to be out in the open.
Okay, so get comfortable. Maybe dim the lights a little bit if you can.
Set the mood.
Yeah, we're going for a slightly different atmosphere today. We usually talk about, tech or historical events or productivity hacks, but today we are getting into the actual architecture of reality itself.
It is a big shift.
It is.
Yeah.
It is relaxed, it is chilling in a cool way, but it is also humorous because, let us be honest, the human condition is kind of ridiculous when you really look at it closely.
Oh, it absolutely is. And the material we are covering today really highlights that absurdity. It suggests that a lot of the problems we face are actually self-inflicted in ways we never even considered.
Right. We are introducing a concept that is equal parts empowering and, frankly, terrifying.
Terrifying is a good word for it.
The core idea is this. What if your daydreams, those random wanderings of your mind while you are washing dishes or stuck in traffic, what if they aren't just contained inside your skull?
What if you were actually running a manufacturing plant?
Yes. And not just manufacturing your own mood, but manufacturing your physical environment. And then this is the absolute kicker, telepathically influencing the people around you.
Which is wild to even think about.
Exactly. We're talking about the very real possibility that you might be accidentally bullying your best friend just by worrying about them.
Telepathic bullying.
Right, like you think you are being a good friend by stressing out over their problems, but you might actually be making things tangibly worse for them.
It completely flips the script on empathy and worry. It really does.
So let us introduce our source for this deep dive. We are cracking open the Seth material. Specifically, we are looking at session 340 of the Early Sessions, Book 8.
To set the scene for you listening at home, this session was recorded on May 10th, 1967.
Over 50 years ago.
Yeah, and we are in Elmira, New York. The setting is very intimate. You have Jane Roberts, who is the author and the medium for this material. She goes into a trance state and speaks for the personality known as Seth.
Then you have her husband, Robert Butts. He is referred to as Joseph in the material.
Right, and he is frantically writing everything down in shorthand as she speaks.
And for this specific session, they actually have a guest in the room, a neighbor named Barbara Ingold.
Just a standard Wednesday night in 1967, hanging out with the neighbors and a transdimensional energy personality essence.
As one does on a Wednesday. But our mission today is to really dismantle what Seth tells Barbara. Because he doesn't just give her, a generic horoscope reading.
No, he is incredibly specific.
He gives her a lecture on the dangers of a runaway imagination. And later, he gives a very practical commercial for a headache cure that he claims beats Excedrin.
Which I think we should definitely try next time we have a migraine.
100%. But let us start with the heavy stuff. Let us talk about the paint analogy.
The paint analogy is so foundational.
Because Seth starts off by basically calling Barbara out in front of everyone.
He does. He turns his attention directly to her and says, "You must watch the pictures that you paint with your imagination." Now, pay attention to that specific word, paint.
Right. Why paint? Why not sketch or think?
Because painting implies something deliberate. It implies vividness. It implies color and permanence. A sketch can be erased pretty easily. A painting is layer upon layer of pigment.
It takes time.
Exactly. Seth is telling her that she allows her imagination to full reign. She is painting thick, heavy realities.
Now, hold on, because this goes against everything we are taught in school.
Yeah.
We tell kids to use their imagination. We think of imagination as this beautiful, whimsical playground where absolutely nothing matters.
Because it is just pretend. Right.
Yeah, we treat imagination as a sandbox where we can play out our worst fears or our weirdest fantasies, and we think it has zero consequence because it is not real.
But Seth is arguing the exact opposite. He is saying the imagination is the blueprint for physical reality.
So it is not a playground. It is a factory floor.
Precisely. The bedrock of this entire philosophy is that your environment and the conditions of your life are the direct result of your own expectations.
You aren't just reacting to the world. You are projecting the world.
You are projecting it from the inside out.
Okay, I need to push back on this a little bit because this can sound an awful lot like victim blaming.
I get that.
If I walk out to my car in the morning and I have a flat tire, are you telling me I painted that flat tire? Because I definitely didn't sit down the night before and think, boy, I would really love a blowout on the freeway today.
That is the most common objection to this material, and it is a completely valid one. But we have to look at the underlying mechanics Seth is describing.
Okay, break it down for me.
It is not always about consciously thinking, I want a flat tire. It is about the underlying climate of your mind.
The climate.
Yes. If you spend your time painting pictures of disaster, of unreliability, of things always going wrong for me, you are generating an electromagnetic reality. That is the exact term he uses.
Electromagnetic reality.
And that reality attracts those conditions. Seth tells Barbara, if you imagine dire circumstances, ill health, or desperate loneliness, these will be automatically materialized. For these thoughts themselves bring forth the conditions.
Automatically materialized. That is the phrase that actually scares me.
It is heavy.
It sounds like a vending machine. I put in the coin of worry, and the machine just drops out a tangible disaster.
Think of it like this. You know how when you buy a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere on the road?
The Bader-Meinhof phenomenon?
Yep.
Sure, frequency illusion.
This is exactly like that, but on a literal physics level. If you
Yeah.
are constantly imagining obstacles, your subconscious goes to work to actually create those obstacles to match your inner reality.
So you're placing an order.
You are placing an order.
So my anxiety isn't just a physical reaction to stress. It is an actual construction crew building more stress into my day.
Exactly. Seth says you form physical materializations of these realities within your own mind. The mind is literally the first step of the assembly line.
That is exhausting. I mean, seriously, it feels like I have to police every single fleeting thought that crosses my brain.
It does feel like that at first.
If I worry about losing my job for 10 seconds, did I just fire myself?
No, and that is a very important distinction to make. Seth isn't talking about fleeting thoughts. He is talking about the pictures you paint.
The things you dwell on.
Yes. The vivid scenarios you replay over and over in the shower. The arguments you win in your head against your boss.
Okay, that makes sense. It is the difference between a passing cloud and a storm system you just decide to sit in for days on end.
Right. He tells Barbara that if she wants good health or good conditions for her child, she must imagine those positive outcomes as vividly as, in fear, you imagine the opposite.
And there's the rub. As vividly.
It is hard to do.
Why is it so much easier to imagine the house burning down than it is to imagine a peaceful Sunday morning?
Evolutionary biology definitely plays a part there. We are fundamentally wired to scan for threats.
To stay alive.
Exactly. The blockbuster movie in our head is usually a disaster film because that keeps our nervous system alert. Everything is Fine is a really boring movie.
It doesn't spike the adrenaline?
It doesn't. We are addicted to the drama. We love the tragedy in our own heads.
We do. And Seth is saying that this addiction has a literal physical price.
He says, you create many of your own difficulties, if not all of them.
If not all of them. That is an incredibly high bar for personal responsibility.
It is absolute accountability. It completely removes the luxury of saying, oh, it is just bad luck. It forces you to look at the mental blueprints you have been drawing all day.
So the humor here, if we can find the dark humor in it, is that we are all walking around terrified of the world. We're buying insurance, locking our doors, trying to protect ourselves from bad luck.
While simultaneously, inside our heads, we are furiously building the very bad luck we are so afraid of.
We are the architects of our own haunted houses. And then we run around screaming, who put these ghosts here?
I did. I ordered the ghosts on Amazon Prime.
And I paid for next day delivery.
Exactly. And you have the receipt right there in your subconscious.
So if we accept this premise, that we create our own personal reality through our deep expectations, what happens when other people enter the picture? Because we don't live in isolated bubbles.
We don't. And this brings us to the second major theme of session 340. This is where the chilling factor really ramps up. We move from personal reality to shared reality.
Or specifically telepathy.
Yes.
Now, when people hear the word telepathy, they usually think of comic books. They think of someone pressing their fingers to their temples and hearing full sentences.
Or guessing which card you're holding behind your back.
Right. But Seth says telepathy isn't a rare superpower at all. He says it operates constantly at a subconscious level. Constantly.
It is just part of the background noise of human communication. We are always broadcasting and we are always receiving.
So let us look at the scenario Seth actually paints for the group to explain this.
Yeah.
Let us call it the miserable friend scenario.
Okay. So imagine you have a friend. Let us call him Bob.
Good old Bob.
And Bob is going through a really rough patch in his life. Maybe he is drinking too much. Maybe he is depressed. Maybe he just lost his job.
Oh, poor Bob.
But
We all know a Bob.
so you meet Bob for coffee, and you look across the table at him, and in the total privacy of your own mind, you think, man, Bob looks terrible. He is miserable. He is an incurable drunk. He is never going to get his act together.
I have absolutely thought things like that about people I care about. I think we all have. We think we are just being realistic. We are just observing the cold, hard facts.
But according to Seth, you aren't just observing, you are transmitting a signal.
Actively.
Actively. He says, if now you see him and think that he looks miserable, then indeed these suggestions are picked up by him subconsciously, though you have not spoken a word.
Whoa. So I am not just thinking it in my own head. I am sending him a subconscious direct message.
You are sending him a command. You are reinforcing his own negative self-image.
That is brutal.
Think about it. If Bob is already down, his psychic defenses are low, he is highly susceptible to suggestion. So when you look at him with that heavy judgment, you are telepathically kicking him while he is down.
That is actually kind of horrifying to realize. It makes me feel incredibly guilty about past interactions.
It reframes a lot of things.
I thought I was just being a concerned, empathetic friend, but I am actually telepathically bullying him.
Telepathic bullying is a really great way to put it. You are adding literal weight to the burden he is already carrying around. You are confirming his worst, darkest fears about himself.
But wait a minute. Let us play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
If Bob actually is an incurable drunk, aren't I just acknowledging reality? If I sit there and pretend he is totally fine, isn't that just delusion?
That is the crucial question. And Seth isn't asking you to be delusional. He is asking you to see the potential, rather than just the current frozen state.
He is asking you to change the signal you are sending.
Exactly.
So what should I do instead of acknowledging the misery? Lie to myself.
Well, no. You acknowledge the physical situation, but then you consciously, deliberately send a different thought. Seth advises that when you see that friend, you stop and say gently to yourself, he will begin to feel better now. There is hope here.
He will begin to feel better now.
Simple as that. You don't have to fix him. You don't have to give him a lecture about his life choices. You just change the telepathic input.
You change the station.
Right. Seth calls this providing telepathic ammunition.
I really love that phrase, telepathic ammunition.
It turns the interaction from a subtle attack into an invisible support drop. You are giving his subconscious something positive to fight with. You are offering a counter-narrative to his overwhelming depression.
And since it operates on a subconscious level, he doesn't even know it is coming from me.
Exactly. He might just suddenly feel a tiny bit lighter. He might have a random thought like, maybe I can actually handle this today.
He thinks it is his own thought.
He does, but you helped plant that seed. You gave him the energy to form that thought.
That is so much cooler than just worrying. Worrying feels like love sometimes. You know, oh, I'm so worried about you. But it is actually kind of selfish.
It is entirely fear-based.
Sending telepathic ammunition is actual, actionable love. It is doing something.
It shifts the entire dynamic from pity to empowerment. Pity creates distance between two people. It says, I am up here doing fine, and you are down there in the mud.
Constructive visualization says, I see the version of you that can get through this mud.
Yes. It is a huge responsibility, though. It means we really cannot just passively judge people anymore. We have to own our mental broadcasts.
Well, speaking of judging people, that leads us directly into the third major theme of this session. Because Seth explains why we judge people so harshly in the first place.
And if you thought the telepathy part was rough on the ego, wait until you hear this concept.
Oh boy. This is the mirror effect.
It is. Seth tells the group, what you see of others is the materialization of what you think subconsciously that you are.
Let that sink in for a second. What you see of others is what you think you are. So if I think everyone around me is a liar,
It is because you are deeply deceiving yourself about something. You are projecting your own internal deceit outward onto the blank screen of the world.
that is a really tough pill to swallow. I mean, if I think the world is full of angry, hostile people, it is because I am angry.
Or because you are suppressing your anger so much that it has nowhere else to go but out. It is the things we completely refuse to acknowledge in ourselves that we see most clearly and most intensely in other people.
Seth gives a specific example here that I think is just brilliant. The industrious man.
Yes, this is the lazy paradox. Imagine a guy who works 80 hours a week. He is an absolute grinder. He is always busy, always productive, always moving.
But he constantly complains that everyone else is lazy. Nobody wants to work anymore. Everyone is a slacker.
We all know that guy.
We do. maybe we are that guy sometimes.
Now, objectively looking at his life, nobody would ever call him lazy. But Seth says this man is driven by a deep, terrifying subconscious fear that he is actually lazy.
Wait, how can he fear he is lazy if he is literally working 80 hours a week?
That is exactly why he works 80 hours a week. He is drastically overcompensating. He created a terrifying subconscious picture of himself as lazy and good for nothing, and he spends his entire waking life running away from that picture.
He is fighting a ghost.
Exactly. And because that fear is so loud in his head, he projects it on everyone else. He sees laziness everywhere he looks because his brain is obsessed with it.
So the people who scream the loudest about a specific flaw in others
Are usually utterly terrified of that exact flaw in themselves.
that explains so much about internet comment sections. It really does.
It explains almost all performative moral outrage.
Seth has a great line about this. He calls these deep-seated fears flying paper dragons to be punctured.
Flying paper dragons, they look massive, they look scary, they look completely real when they're flying at you.
But they are flimsy. They are just paper.
They're constructions of the ego, not the inner self.
We talk about the ego a lot in these deep dives. But Seth seems to treat the ego not as this evil enemy to be destroyed, but as maybe a confused middle manager.
That is a really good analogy. He calls it a counterfeit self. He says, you are not listening to what your own inner voice says. You are listening to what your ego says.
The ego is the one screaming about the paper dragons.
Right. The inner self knows they aren't real. The inner self is calm.
So the major takeaway here is, if you have a strong, visceral, emotional reaction to someone else's behavior, if it really triggers you, you need to check the mirror.
Always check the mirror. If you spot a pattern in your life, like, why is everyone so rude to me? Or why is everyone so incompetent?
That is a direct message from your subconscious about your own hidden beliefs. You are painting those pictures.
And you're hanging them in your own gallery.
I feel like I need to go apologize to a lot of people right now. Yeah. Or maybe just apologize to myself.
Probably both would be a good start.
Okay, so we have covered the heavy philosophical stuff. We've learned that we build our own nightmares, we telepathically bully our friends, and we project our own hidden insecurities onto random strangers.
It is a lot to process.
I feel like we need a break from the heavy lifting. We need something practical.
How about a cure for a headache?
Perfect. Because thinking about all this cosmic responsibility is actually giving me a headache.
Well, you are in luck. Seth literally calls this next section a commercial. He says, I will give you a commercial that is better than your Excedrin.
Better than pharmaceuticals. That's quite a bold claim from a disembodied spirit.
But the logic he uses is surprisingly sound. It is based entirely on the idea of the power of the now.
So walk us through it. Let us say, I have a headache right now. It is throbbing. What is the very first mistake I usually make?
The first mistake is telling someone about it. Or even telling yourself, oh man, I have such a bad headache.
Why is that a mistake? It is a physical fact. My head hurts.
It is a fact in that specific second, yes. But by stating it, by saying I have a headache, you are reinforcing the condition.
I see.
You are suggesting to your body that this is a state that should continue into the next moment. You are owning it. You are calling it my headache.
So I'm essentially giving my body instructions. Keep hurting, please.
Essentially, yes. The body follows the mind's expectations. If you focus deeply on the pain, you amplify the pain. So, Seth offers a fix. He gives Barbara a specific script to use.
Okay, I have the script pulled up here. Step 1. Realize you have the pain. You don't deny it exists. You don't pretend you are fine.
Right, denial doesn't work. But step 2, do not claim it as a permanent possession.
And then, step 3. You say this phrase either internally or out loud. That is in the past. Now, in this new moment, this new present, I am already feeling better.
I am already feeling better.
But I am not. I still hurt in that moment. Isn't that technically a lie?
No, it is a command. You are reorienting your focus to the immediate now. The pain you felt a literal second ago is in the past. It literally doesn't exist anymore.
And the future hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. In this tiny nanosecond of now, you are asserting a brand new reality.
Okay, so I see the magic words. That is in the past. Now I am better. What is step 4?
This is usually the hardest part for people. Distract yourself immediately.
Concentrate upon something pleasant or begin another task.
You have to forcibly break the focus. If you sit there waiting to see if the magic words worked, is it gone yet? Is it gone yet? You are focusing on the headache again.
You are rebuilding the exact wall you just tried to tear down.
It sounds so simple, but it is actually really hard to execute because we secretly love to nurse our pain.
We really do. There is a strange, twisted comfort in it.
It gives us a valid excuse to check out of life, to be grumpy with people, to gather sympathy from our friends.
Seth is basically asking, do you actually want the headache, or do you want to be free?
It is the ultimate atmosphere assessment. We hold on to our misery simply because it is familiar territory.
And Seth points out that if you don't actively replace that negative thought with a positive command, the negative one just wins by default.
You have to actively overwrite the code in your brain.
I am going to try this next time. That is in the past. Now I am a golden god of radiant health. And then I will immediately go fold some laundry.
It is definitely worth a shot. It highlights the immense power of the present moment. If you can change the psychological suggestion in the our way, now you actually change the physical physiology.
Okay, so we have had the deep philosophy, the psychology of projection, and the medical advice. But we cannot do a deep dive into the Seth material without talking about the high strangeness.
The spooky validation.
Right, because up until this point in the section, a hardcore skeptic could listen to all of this and say, okay, this is all just nice self-help advice.
Positive thinking. Cognitive behavioral therapy with a fun 1960s twist.
But then something happens right at the end of the session that makes you go, wait a minute, how on earth did he know that?
Seth, who is, remember, speaking through Jane Roberts while she is in a trance in Elmira, New York, suddenly starts getting these random impressions. He breaks his own flow.
He breaks character almost.
He says, Pat Norelli, just drops a random name into the room.
Now, Pat Norelli was a correspondent. She was someone who wrote letters to Jane and Robert, but she was absolutely not in the room that night.
Right. And then Seth starts listing these very specific, seemingly random things associated with her. He says he sees NAR, he sees a long rug in a narrow entry.
Something to do with the Greek chorus.
A missionary encounter, patterns on a wall, MICH, down in the valley.
It sounds like a stream of consciousness data dump. It sounds like psychic static.
If you were just reading the raw transcript without looking at the footnotes, you would think, okay, the ghost is glitching out, let us wrap it up.
But the footnotes are where the absolute gold is buried. The published transcript includes a note from Robert referencing a letter they received from Pat Norelli later on, confirming this exact data.
So Pat writes back and says, hey, this is weirdly accurate to my life right now.
Specifically, the Greek connection. Pat confirms she's actively dating a Greek boy. That perfectly explains the Greek chorus reference.
In the rug.
She writes back and says, the description of the long rug in a narrow front entry fits his apartment perfectly.
That is just wild. Long rug, narrow entry. That is so remarkably specific. It is not a generic cold reading like, oh, you will meet a tall, dark stranger.
It is architectural details of her boyfriend's hallway in a completely different city.
Yeah.
A hallway Jane Roberts had never set foot in.
And this is exactly why it matters to the broader philosophy. You can listen to Seth talk about the nature of reality and paper dragons and telepathic bullying, and you can easily dismiss it as just interesting philosophy, nice ideas to ponder.
But then he casually tells you about the specific rug in your new boyfriend's hallway from hundreds of miles away.
Exactly. It adds a crucial layer of objective validity to the whole text. It forces you to seriously consider that maybe the source of this information actually does have access to a broader reality than we do.
It is the hook that keeps you from just floating away into pure theory. It heavily grounds the mystical concepts in undeniable physical reality.
It is what paranormal researchers call evidential data. It strongly suggests that consciousness is not strictly bound by space and time.
Because if it was, he couldn't see the rug.
Right. If Seth can peek into Pat Norelli's private life just as easily as he can explain the mechanics of a headache, maybe he really knows what he's talking about regarding telepathy.
Which brings us completely full circle. If consciousness isn't bound by space and time, then my private worry about my friend really can reach them instantly.
Everything connects back together. The philosophical lecture explains the mechanism, and the spooky validation proves the actual capability.
So we have covered a truly massive amount of ground today. We've gone from painting disasters to telepathic ammo to Greek rugs. What does this all actually mean for you, the listener, right now in your day-to-day life?
I think it means we have to actively take the helm of our own minds. We are too often just passive passengers, letting our random thoughts drive us right off cliffs.
Seth is handing us the steering wheel and saying, drive.
It is about constant vigilance.
Vigilance, and I would add kindness. Kindness to yourself by not terrorizing your own nervous system with imaginary disasters you painted yourself.
And profound kindness to others by not projecting your hidden fears onto them when they are vulnerable.
It is what people call the work, and it is not easy. It is much, much easier to just be a helpless victim of your own runaway thoughts.
It is easier in the short term, yes. But the long-term alternative is living in a terrifying house built entirely by your nightmares.
I would rather live in the house built by my hopes. Or at least a house with a really nice rug in the hallway.
A long rug and a narrow entry.
Exactly. So let us quickly recap the toolkit you are walking away with today.
Number 1, watch your paint. Your imagination is a literal manufacturing plant. Do not build physical things you do not want to live in.
Number 2, be nice in your own head. It actually physically helps your friends. Do not send them telepathic junk mail. Send them telepathic ammunition. Remember the phrase, he will begin to feel better now.
And number 3, delete your headaches. Or at least try the Excedrin commercial. Say, that is in the past, now I am better. And then go immediately distract yourself with a task.
We definitely want to give credit where credit is due before we wrap up. This deep dive was based entirely on the Seth material. Specifically, we were looking at the early sessions, Book 8.
These books are published by the New Awareness Network. They are dense, they are incredibly fascinating, and they are absolutely worth your time if you want to understand the true mechanics of human consciousness.
We only scratched the surface of session 340 today. If you want to go directly to the source, and we highly recommend you do, you need to check out sethcenter.com, the early sessions.
There's really nothing quite like reading the raw transcripts yourself. You catch subtle nuances and a lot of dry humor that we might have missed in our summary.
And before we go, we always like to leave you with a little something to chew on, a final provocative thought to carry into your day.
We talked heavily today about how your physical environment is a direct reflection of your inner psychological state.
Right. You see what you are.
So look around the room you're sitting in right now. Really look at it.
Oh no, I am looking at a massive pile of dirty dishes in my sink.
Well, if you are actively creating your physical environment right now, what does that pile of dishes say about the current state of your soul?
It says my soul is deeply procrastinating.
Or maybe it says your soul is just finally ready to be cleansed.
I like that interpretation way better. Let us go with the soul cleansing. Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep painting good pictures.
Be well.
See ya.